Hi, hello, hello everybody. I am just waiting for Rekha to join this conversation. Just give us a minute. Hi, hello. Hi, Yola, Petani. Hi. Just give me a second. Just give me a moment. I'm just going to pause this video for a second, please. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I see Rekha. Hi.
Hi, Akila. Can you hear me?
Very well. How are you?
Good, good, very good. How are you doing?
Not bad at all, Rekha. Thank you so much for being a part of Panjavarnam's in the company of the Sari series. Really appreciate you taking time off to do this.
Happily. Thank you so much for having me over too.
Most welcome. You know, I have this fetish for finding interesting quotes to introduce the people that that I'm interviewing. And today, when I was looking for, I read your profile, and everyone knows what a multifaceted person you are. And the first quote that the internet threw me today was, "When they tell you not to be eye candy, but to be soul food." Except you're a multifaceted being, so you're eye candy, soul food, and a spiritual warrior princess. So that's Rekha Sudarshan for all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Akila. Really nice of you. It feels really good.
Yes. So in Rekha's case, for those who don't know, Rekha Sudarshan is a lactation consultant, a childbirth educator, a psychologist, and a long distance runner. Daughter, daughter-in-law, wife, and mother of two boys who are 20 and 19. Nobody's ever going to believe that, Rekha. She's also an international board certified hypnobirthing specialist, perinatal fitness and wellness expert, and a certified perinatal Pilates specialist. With focus on holistic fitness and wellness, Rekha Sudarshan is also a long distance runner and has done 15 full marathons, 2 majors at Tokyo and Chicago, several half marathons, and helps women, is particularly keen on helping women deal with and achieve their fitness goals. She's been associated with the very well-known Chennai-based Sitapati Hospital since 2003 and with Rainbow Children's Hospital since 2010. She's the recipient of several accolades and awards, is a founder member of Dream Runners, a pioneering running group in the city. Her book in Tamil on pregnancy has sold more than 8,000 copies. What people often talk about Rekha is how she never lets like her positive attitude never ever like comes in the way of how she's beautifully turned out, how many hats she wears with elan and ease, and always does that with so much perfection and with such a smile. So thank you so much. We're really excited to have a conversation with you, Rekha.
Thank you, Akila. I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off by asking you, are you wearing a linen sari?
Yes, I am wearing a pure linen sari.
Oh wow,
It
okay.
feels good to wear a sari after a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's actually not a long time. The last, I think, I was just having a chat with a friend of mine, and she said, "When was the last that you wore a sari?" And it was in February, not too no, not too far.
Right.
I mean, but still, I think with all that's happening around, it just feels like ages since we wore something nice. So it
I
feels good
know.
to be in a sari again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also dress up a little, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I agree to
I
that.
think I
Yeah.
think Rekha, that's the don't you agree with me that there's something about the sari that you can't really take for granted. Like if you wear it, you automatically kind of wearing a piece of jewelry and you kind of like, you want to kind of line your eyes, you wear a little lipstick. I don't know, like I always feel that it automatically kind of
I think to me, Akhila, sari epitomizes grace and elegance. So I've never seen a person, or probably it's the way you look at something or somebody because you like that particular, attire.
Right.
So anybody who wears a sari, I always see there's some grace or some elegance, that's attached to it. There are a lot of people who don't even wear a piece of jewelry with a sari, but yeah, but it just shows that grace in them. I think that's what a sari does to anybody, and it's that
Yeah.
confidence that it gives you. Especially if you like
Absolutely.
wearing a sari, I don't think there's anything that can come anywhere near that.
Yeah, and definitely for me, Rekha, this whole lockdown that I've been doing so many interviews and I've just literally worn so many saris, it's definitely been a mood elevator.
No, I agree to that because that's exactly how I feel today. It
Yeah, and
feels
we're going
good
to
to wear a
talk
sari.
about, and we're going to talk
And more
about mood.
importantly, when you know the blouse fits, you're very happy about it, that you've not gained any weight. So
Rekha, that is not applicable to you at all.
no, it's
That is not
applicable to me
applicable to
too.
you.
Anyway.
Well, okay, so I'm going to firstly start off by asking you really about how lockdown life has been for you. Talk to me about has there been a shift in your routine, if at all? And if yes, how is it now?
See the lockdown, I think probably because we are in the health sector, Akila, it was more of it was not more of lockdown, your life being locked down or anything. I think there were a lot of other factors which we had to look into. I'm a part of a big team. Okay, I'm
Right.
actually a part of a big team. So like Sitapati. So we had a lot of other things that we had to look into so that this factor of lockdown never really seeped into us.
Hmm.
So, but it came as a big shocker to us. So even then it was more of, are we going to protect the people around? How are we going to do that? The logistics that go behind the whole thing. Because, I mean, good and bad is we don't look at our job as a profession or as a career. It is more of a passion that we're doing. And we're dealing with lives here. We're dealing with pregnant women. We're dealing with babies, newborns, infants. So there's a lot of things at stake. So it was literally like walking on a live mine for us.
I
So
know.
it was the new normal had a very different definition for us. So
Yeah.
it's only I think in the past few days or past 1 week, it's kind of got into me, especially that okay, this is how it's going to be. Okay, not that we were unsettled or anything. Personally, there's no unsettlement kind of a thing. But I think a lot of people who are here, so like for instance, my in-laws live with me, my parents live close by. So, when I go to a hospital, I shouldn't be a carrier of any infection to the
So
pregnant
put
women or
them
the
at
babies
risk.
that I'm seeing. And
Yeah.
I shouldn't be carrying back an infection to an 86-year-old or an 82-year-old who's living with me. So a lot of
Absolutely.
these factors that run in your mind. So, so I think uncertainty and fear have been the two predominant emotions that
Emotions.
have, kind of, yeah, ruling us.
Yeah.
So that's how the lockdown has been. But otherwise, I think it's more of, but one thing that the lockdown has taught me is minimalistic living. I think
Really.
that it is,
Okay.
yeah.
But Rika, one would, from what little that I've known you and seen you, you always seem like a,
Sorry. Yeah. Go
okay,
ahead.
no problem. But you always seem like you are a sort of a minimalist kind of person. No?
No, I'm not. No,
Okay, I
it's
got
more of,
that
I
wrong.
think minimalistic has different definitions, but
What's yours?
I find joy in everything. Okay, so it's not like I can go shopping in Europe and I can just spend all the money in my hand, or I can just go to a place not spend anything at all. Okay, to
Right.
me just see and come. Yeah, so
Yeah.
to me I'm but frankly speaking, I'm not a minimalistic.
Oh, you're
But it
not.
has taught
Okay.
me. I'm not a minimalist.
Okay. Okay.
I can
Wow.
assure you that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody seems to be, the lockdown's been a huge learning of some sort for everybody, right? Everybody's taking home some like lesson. Like for me, for one, I've like learned to appreciate my help so much more. Like I've missed her so much in
Yeah.
100 days and also the monotony that they must be feeling to like do it day in and day out, right? I mean, it changes your
So I think
perspective.
as we said in the beginning of the discussion that I think uncertainty and fear are the predominant ones
Yeah.
that's ruling everybody's mind across all sectors. I mean, however literate you are, however lettered you are, or any kind of a sector that you belong to, I think these are two things that are there in everybody's mind. How
Right.
your future is going to be, how the health is going to be, is there any safety? So these are the things that are really, so what happens is, I think we've started going back to our basics. We've started going back to, our roots. We've started
Yeah.
doing things that we were not doing because there were so many things around us. I think we were distracted by so many
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of focus now, and it's more of, I think, being grateful for what you have.
Oh, yeah.
I think these are the
Gratitude.
things
Yeah.
that are kind of, I mean, it's not just with me. When I talk to many people, I think that's what people are talking about, being grateful for how they are, what
What
they
you
are
have.
yeah, and what you are. So
Yeah.
I think these are things that kind of, and especially if you have your family around, we're really grateful that, your family is safe, your family is around. So I think that's the most important thing that
Overall.
everybody has
Yeah. Yeah.
learned. Yeah.
Right. Rika, so, I meant to ask this question to you a little bit later, but, you talked about uncertainty and fear being the most predominant emotions, so to speak, and you are a psychologist. Tell us about, I'm always curious that if you are a psychologist, then would you always be in control of your life? I mean, because you kind of, how does that work?
No, it's not that way, Akhil. I really wish it's that easy, but it's not that easy. I think it's the lessons that you learn on introspection that helps. So if you ask me as a psychologist, what do I imbibe and what do I learn out of my life so that I can translate that into my own life is
Correct.
when I introspect and I find that these are areas where I can kind of improve or something. I think that really helps as being a psychologist when I kind of imbibe from the others.
Right.
But frankly speaking, as a psychologist, we also have our, I mean, as me, I have my mood swings, I have my bad days, and I have my good days as a normal human being. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that keeps me sane. It really
Right.
keeps me
Right.
sane because I am what I am. Okay, I'm not
Absolutely.
going to put up, I'm not going to see. Yes, there are some transformations that happen when you see somebody, when you learn from somebody, or an incident really transforms you. So, transformation is somewhere you don't go back to where you were. Okay,
Yeah.
but I don't think transformation happens every day and every incident. Then it does, it's not a transformation then. Okay, but
Right.
yes, I am open to change. I do learn from a lot of people, and to me, I think to be very candid and very frank, that everybody's a case study to me.
That's what I was
Okay,
going to
every
ask you,
single
Rekha.
person.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, you must be
yes,
meeting
yes.
so many people with, so many different kinds of, emotional issues and stuff. And so, what is it like for you to interact with them? And, sometimes you see people who are way more vulnerable than you are, and you kind of, you come back feeling a bit grateful for what you have. What has that journey been like being a psychologist?
So I moved from psychiatry to maternity way back in 2003, Akila. So
Right.
being in psychiatry was a completely different ball game to what I am now. Maternity and
Right.
infant care is a completely different niche field. Okay,
Absolutely.
so the psychiatry was a completely different one, and I was much
Right.
younger then. So I'm talking
Right.
about way back between 95 and 2003. I was in psychiatry.
Right.
So the lessons learned there were very, very crucial. Okay, very crucial,
Right.
very critical lessons that you learn. Okay, and especially I was in a psychiatry ward, a psychiatry department in the general hospital. So
Right.
right out of college, you're in the psychiatry department. What you read in the book, you see there in person. So that's a completely different story altogether.
Right.
But the lessons learned are I think is lifelong lessons. Yeah, that
Absolutely.
you
In
learn.
fact,
Yeah, daily.
Vishaka Joshi, who's watching our conversation, says that it's taught me some important life lessons. The corona, the lockdown, the difference between wants and needs. Yeah, absolutely, Vishaka. Can't agree
Oh
more.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
agree to that too. Yeah.
right.
But I hope, I mean, it's not just for Vishaka, but I hope all our lessons stay. I
Yeah.
hope it
Oh my
doesn't
God.
just
Yeah.
leave. So I think that's the I think it should be a transforming experience now. The
Right.
corona thing or whatever, the pandemic should have transformed us in many ways. Okay, then it's
Absolutely.
worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Rekha, before we talk to you about your life as a childbirth educator, talk to us about, when you actually discovered the sari, because after all, this is a conversation on the sari. So when did you discover the sari and when did you actually fall in love with it?
I've always been in love with the sari, Akhila. I've always been in love with the sari. I think each one of us, I don't know about everybody, but I know my cousins, my sister, my friends. I think all of us, even when we were kids, I think we have worn the sari and, kind
Yeah.
of role modeled. So you kind of do that, right? So the
Yeah.
sari, I think, is always, it was very, I was always amused by seeing a sari. I was always amused about, I was always very intrigued, very curious to know what the sari is all about when I was young. Okay,
Right.
so I think that the first sari that you wear is very
Always.
important. It really
Yeah.
stays in your mind. I think way
Right.
back it was in your 10th standard to 11th standard when you go,
Yeah.
you have this
Farewell
farewell
party.
party and you wear the first sari and all that.
Right.
So the sari that you borrow from your mom, I think I borrowed a sari from my aunt, and yeah, and the blouse that you see. I think those are stories that stay in your mind. But the
Sure.
minute you wear that sari, there's this, and you can see the pride in the face of your family, pride in your face of your
It's
parents.
like you've,
So I think,
you've,
yeah,
it's a
I think it
transformational
kind of,
kind of,
yeah,
yeah.
it kind of, just gives, sends that message into you saying that, the sari is something very different.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. So
also
I think
like a
my
mark of
love for the,
maturity, right, Rekha? Like, would
oh,
you
yes,
agree?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, mark of maturity is there for sure, but I think the love that I have, or my love for the sari, I think began long back, a long way back, from my 10th grade or something. Yeah, at any given occasion, Akhil, I would wear a sari, and I love the 9 yards too.
Oh,
Okay, any given, okay. Oh, I love 9 yards. I love to wear nine
really?
yards. Yes, yes, I
Wow.
love to wear 9 yards. Yeah, but because I think that it's a beauty. I love 9 yards too. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, can I ask you
Yes.
which style of the 9 yards you wear, the Shaivite or the Vaishnavite?
Okay, I'm a Shaivite married to a Vaishnavite, so I
Okay.
wear the Vaishnavite thing. But any function in the Shaivite side, I wear the Shaivite side. So I
Oh,
like
lovely.
both sides. Yeah, I
Okay,
love
that
the nine
is
yards. As simple as that. I can be in the 9 yards the whole day. I wear it for Kartigay, I wear it for Pongal, I wear it for any given occasion. You tell me, I wear it. I have ready-made 9 yard sari, so I just drape it to the drop of a hat, and so
right.
I love
Wow.
9 yards. Yeah.
Yeah. Rekha, you also, I've seen you wear a lot of saris to work as well, and you're always like so pristinely turned out, matching blouse, beautiful jewelry. And I remember that when I was, I just delivered my child, and I was like looking like utterly lousy and feeling utterly like down in the dumps. I remember you walking into the room looking like so gorgeous, and I literally wanted to hide under the bed. Talk to me about, this sari at work, and what is the kind of statement that it makes when a woman wears a sari to work? What is your take on that?
To me, Akila, when I wear a sari and walk into the lounge, I think there's a respect that comes from everywhere. You can just see it in the eyes of people.
Absolutely.
There's a respect there. Yeah, I mean, I work with a team which is just, you know the team very well. They're
Right.
beautiful. They're
Yeah.
talented. They're so smart. Oh, they're I mean, like Dr. Umar Ram or Dr. Shobna Mahadevan. I mean,
Right.
I think they ooze elegance and they ooze grace when they wear a sari. So I think it kind of when as a team, when you walk in with a sari and all that, especially in the health field that we're
Yeah.
in, I think it just oozes that kind of a respect that I
Yeah.
don't think that any other attire would
Would.
bring out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, grace, it epitomizes grace, elegance, and respect for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Rekha, so what is your, since you openly confess that you're not a minimalist, so what is your maximalist sari wardrobe like?
My God, I only hope my close friends are not watching this program. So
Anu
I
is here.
have,
I spotted Anu. So
okay. No, I have all kinds of saris. I love saris, as I said. So wherever I see a sari, I pick it up. It's not just for an occasion that I pick up saris.
right.
Wherever I see a good sari, I pick it up, I keep it. And but for me, it's not just buying a sari, Akila. For me, it is what goes in. I can see my friend Radha Rangarajan was just
Oh,
locked in, so she knows the kind of
okay.
collection that I have. But
Right.
but the thing here is, I think it's not just about the sari. The minute I see a sari, my mind just starts. The creative side of me comes out. I start
Right.
thinking about how to design a blouse, and it's not just the blouse that comes with the sari. I've never owned that blouse with the sari. I don't do that at all. I
Right.
mix
Yeah,
match,
yeah.
I
We
combine.
all love
Oh,
that.
there are
Yeah.
saris where I've torn an old dupatta. I've mixed the dupatta with the blouse piece. But the fortunate thing is I have good tailors who are sane, still
Yeah.
dealing with me. And I give them the design. I sit with them. I design. So for me, every sari to me is a masterpiece. It can be a simple cotton sari. It can be a
But
gorgeous Kanjipuram sari. It really doesn't matter to me. For me, and I go and when I go shopping, it's not just I go to shop for that particular sari. When I see something, I pick it up. I keep it with me, and I just mix match things. So I like the creative part that comes out when I see a sari in a blouse, and I love doing it for my friends too. So when I go shopping
oh,
with my friends and they ask me to help them, I just love doing that. And I love when my friends wear the sari and the blouse that both of us together have designed. Me and my friend together have designed for
oh,
her. I think it really makes you feel good. Yeah.
yeah.
So that
I mean,
that to me is my, yeah,
yeah,
sari. So
that's the
coming
amazing
back to
thing
that.
about girlfriends as well, right, Rekha?
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. I have lovely girlfriends that way. And
Right,
coming back to my wardrobe, I have all kinds of sarees there. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Rekha, I was going to ask you about, a little bit about, just sort of oozing this, like wearing many hats and being in control of them all. Like, have you always been like that, or did you sort of learn it along the way? I remember when I did my just before I was pregnant prenatal classes with you. You
Yes.
talked about how as soon as you had delivered a baby, you felt like you had gained some weight, and then you started working out, and that's when your journey with fitness began, right? I want to talk to you about. We will talk about your fitness journey as well, but I really want to talk to you about what it takes to kind of constantly be or constantly remain on top of the game and do that with with control, conviction, and with a smile. Like, inspire us.
Akila, I have this conviction in my mind that I prefer to do only what I like to do.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I generally don't do or don't get into things that I'm not convinced about. So
Right.
my S and my no's are very clear. To be very
Yeah.
frank, my no's are very, very clear. Okay, so I'm very, very, very strong about my no's. Okay, my no is a no. That's it, as simple as that. So it's not about convincing anybody. It's not about telling somebody, giving somebody a message. It's a message to myself. Okay, so it's not that I don't try a lot of things. I do try a lot of things, and it's not that I give up because I can't do it. Okay, that's not the thing. It's because if I'm not convinced about something, that gut feeling that I should have about something, it should be a good one. It should be a positive one. It should help me. It shouldn't trouble me. It shouldn't give me a sleepless night. It
Yeah.
shouldn't, yeah, yeah. So
Become a
that I
point.
won't do. So
Yeah.
to me, because I think my standpoints are very clear in what I want to do. So because my standpoints are very clear, but the thing here is I have my window, my range is very huge. So I have a lot of from running to being a childbirth educator to being I think every woman plays multiple roles. I'm not saying no, but to me, I'm just talking about myself. So for me, every single role I take it I take it seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, seriously in the sense, I give it my best. I give it my
Yeah.
best. Yeah, so I think that kind of helps me being on top of it.
No,
That's
I
it.
think that's a great
So,
point, Rekha, and I'm glad you brought this up because, of late we're reading so much about the importance of standing your ground and learning to say no. And some people,
yes.
like for me, for example, I suck at saying no. I just don't know how to say no. And I recognize more and more as I'm getting older that much of my stress comes from not being able to say no. Right. And I like how you said that,
No,
that's
coming to
that.
that point, Akila, even it's very embarrassing and it's very sticky sometimes
Yeah.
to say no. Okay. But I think you have to be very clear. I have issues even every day. There's some, because we deal with so many people, right? So
Yeah.
it's very tough to say a no to somebody or for something. But I think if you're convinced about what you are convinced about, okay, I
Right.
think the no's can come out in a very polite and a very soft way. That's all. That's the only thing.
Right.
So you don't have to be arrogant. You don't have to be aggressive about what you don't want to
Absolutely.
do. But I think it's very clear about. I think your actions will very clearly show what you want to do. Okay, and you stick to your standpoints, and it's not that it shouldn't vary. Standpoints have to be standpoints. Okay, then I
Right.
think people respect you, and I think it's a vicious cycle, literally.
No, absolutely. And I think like automatically saying no is also an act of self-care, right?
Yes.
Rekha,
Yes.
so would you talk to us about why self-care is so important? How in many ways I think of you as somebody who pays a great deal of attention to those two words. They have been trending a lot these days. Self-care, it's really the new mantra, right? Everybody's talking about it. Could you talk about why it's important and how you practice it consciously and how you've been practicing it consciously?
It's very important to be. It's not just about physical fitness,
Yeah,
Akila. It's about mental fitness. It's about the emotional equilibrium that you have, and the
right,
physical fitness. I think it's a good triangle altogether, and
right,
it's a combination of all three that
right,
keeps you sane, and it keeps you sane, so the family is sane too. Okay, so I think a woman is the nucleus of the family, and I think I've said this many times. Happy, healthy families revolve around happy, healthy women. As simple as that. Okay, so it's not just about the physical fitness. I think it's a combination of all three. So when we say
right,
self care involves all three. Okay, so and I think every woman, whether she likes it or whether she doesn't, I think each one of us are a role model to our own family. Okay,
mm,
and yeah, and I think the family respects you when you take care of yourself, and
right.
taking care of the family, taking care of people around comes naturally to a woman. That's
Of
the
course.
beauty of a woman, and that's something that I really admire about every single woman I come across. I think at any age, at any point of time, I think we unconsciously, I mean, it's not even that you don't even do it on purpose,
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
comes automatically that you
naturally.
put somebody ahead of you. It
Yeah,
can be your child, I mean, most of the times it's your children, it can be your husband, it can be your family, but somebody is always ahead, always
yeah,
in front. I mean, you put them ahead of you for everything. Okay, so I think that's one good quality that all of us have. But the flip side of it is we find a lot of women become martyrs. Okay, so
mm,
at one point of time, I think once you get married and especially after you have children, I think people kind of the priorities
lose
are, yes,
focus. Yeah,
priorities have to be yeah, have to. I think everything has a role. So to me,
right.
I'm the enlightening force, and the roles that I play make what I am. So I'm a
Mm,
mother, that's a role. I'm a wife, that's a role. I'm a runner, it's a role.
mm,
So I think as a child, so everything is a role. So
mm,
every role I take seriously, but
mm,
it's a combination of everything that makes me what I am. It's not just
right.
one thing.
Just,
So
yeah,
when you have such a big responsibility on your shoulder, I think you might as well take care of yourself.
yeah,
Okay, so the
that's really
self care is
important.
very, very important, but self care is a combination of all three put together.
All three, lovely. Rekha, talk to us a little bit about being a lactation consultant. I mean, from what I understand, like breastfeeding is such a at least touted to be such a powerful and such a precious emotion, right? What would you say about it, and what's this whole journey of being able to initiate women and educate them and sensitize them on the importance of breastfeeding? What has that journey been like? Share some stories with us, like.
It's actually very strange that in a place like India, where it's an assumed fact that you become a mother, you breastfeed. As simple as that. It's a by
Yeah.
default activity. But with the break of the joint family system, and with with due respect to all my literate, lettered, pregnant women, if they're listening to this, I think inundated with a lot of information that they really don't have to be informed about. I think not every, but a lot of pregnant
Yeah.
women, especially when they become mothers, they're very confused because they come in with this thing of they know everything, so they think it's very silly to ask a question to somebody,
Yeah.
but they're very confused because their peer group, their own age group, whose probably maturity is at the same level, is probably giving them an advice that is actually not compliant to what they have to do. So this is
Yeah.
how a new mother comes into the picture of taking the motherhood there. Okay, so if
Right.
they have a mother or a mother-in-law, it helps, but in this present day, probably the new grandmother, the last time she saw a child was that new mother now. Okay, so she hasn't seen a baby since probably 25, 27, 20, 30 years. So what happens is the minute a newborn, see, a newborn can be very overwhelming. Okay, I'm sure you've gone through that. All
Oh
of us
yeah.
have gone through that. Yeah, very overwhelming. It just, there's no time. You're not there anymore. The time is not in your hand. Nothing is in your hand. So the
Yeah.
only focus is the baby, and the baby, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the mistake that many people in the family, especially in the Indian community, does is every time the baby cries, the only thing that the new mother hears is, you don't have enough milk, the baby is just crying.
Hungry.
The baby is not passed too much urine, feed the baby. The baby has passed too much urine, feed the baby. The baby is not sleeping, feed the baby and sleep. Make him sleep. Or the baby is sleeping too much, wake him up and feed. Okay, so it's only that feed, and
Yeah. Oh
feed. So
my
at one
God.
point of time, I've heard a lot of new mothers tell me, do I look like a cow? Do I look like a milk making machine? So,
Right.
I mean, it's not just, yeah. So it's like, so imagine for a new mother to bring up something like that, it means that she's literally being tortured at home, no? Tortured within
Right.
quotes. So the only
Right.
thing she keeps hearing is that, and the other thing that the family forgets is, till the minute she delivers, she is the apple of the eye. The pregnant woman is everything in the family. Okay.
Yeah.
The minute
And then,
she delivers, yeah, the minute she
okay.
delivers, nobody gives her time for the transition to set in. 10 o'clock,
Right.
she's a pregnant woman. 10:01, she delivers. 10:01 and a half, she's a mother. That's not important. The world expects her to be a responsible mother right away, and that's where the problem starts.
That
Okay.
is such a
So this is
fantastic
where,
point.
yeah, this is where people like us come in. So we are the interface there. So what happens is it's such a natural activity. Breastfeeding
Right.
is a natural. She doesn't have to do. It's a
Yeah.
no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You deliver, the progesterone hormone drops. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
hormonal thing. But the thing is to put the baby on the breast. So everything. So I mean, with due respect, of course, everybody needs a user manual now. Okay, so it's from start. So how do I hold my baby? Is it from ear, shoulder, hip in one straight line? You don't have to do. It's a default activity. It comes. It's a gut. So but then we just teach them. Then we tell them. So this is where we come in. So we teach them.
Right.
So the whole idea is to make them understand that the importance of breast milk, like a medicine, it's immunological, it's developmental, it's nutritional. So no, appear somebody told me that my cousin's child looks so chubby and adorable. Look at my child, he's so thin. She gives formula, I give my child breast milk. No, but he can be thin, but he's very healthy. I only hope your cousin's child doesn't become an obese adult. So childhood obesity is something we are
Yeah.
fighting. So the best thing, the best vaccine that you can give your child is breast milk. Okay, so
Right.
this is
Absolutely.
what we imbibe. Yeah, this is exactly the message that we want every pregnant woman. So what we do is, in the clinics that I go to, we take antenatal breastfeeding classes. So before she delivers, she's ready for breastfeeding.
Right.
There's no way I can go and talk to a new mother about breastfeeding, because the last person she wants to see is me.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to remind her about breastfeeding, right? So we talk to her. So
Yeah.
this
Or
is
you're
what we
going to
do.
remind her about how horrible she looks.
No, I've been there too. Okay, so this is where it comes in. So this is why we tell them that why breastfeeding, what is the importance of breastfeeding, the immunity that you can give. That's the best gift that you can give. But you have to talk to a prepared mind. Okay, so you prepare them before, and then you take them. You handhold them completely. So that's my job.
Right, Rekha, but as a as a lactation consultant dealing with new mothers, like empathy and sensitivity are probably like core in your communication and how you deal with them, right? So how do you negotiate a mother who is not able to breastfeed? I'm sure you probably meet a ton of women who really want to breastfeed, and there's so much, obviously, like breastfeeding is like so fantastic and there's so much talk about it, but it's possible that some women are just genuinely not able to. So how do you negotiate that and make them feel like not utterly horrible about themselves?
So the fact to be told is, Akila, all mothers can breastfeed. Okay, the only ones who cannot produce milk at all are so let's say somebody has gone through a breast enhancement surgery when they were
Right.
young, or they have gone through a breast reduction surgery.
Right.
Okay, or who somebody is going through a chemotherapy or a radiotherapy.
Right.
Something like that. Okay, or the sodium levels are high. Some of these medical issues that they
Factors
have,
into
very few. and then they can't breastfeed, or some of them cannot produce breast milk. But
Right.
every single mother can produce breast milk. Okay.
Okay.
It depends on how you initiate the breastfeeding part of it, and you don't just pick up a bottle, pick up a formula tin at the drop of a hat. And one thing that a new mother and the family have to understand and learn is that every time the baby cries, the baby is just not hungry. The baby could be crying for so many reasons. Okay,
Right.
so if the mother can learn that, and baby's tummy size is very, very small.
Tiny.
It's just, at the time of birth, it's literally 1.5 centimeters. So we're only
Yeah.
talking about probably 1 or 2 teaspoons of colostrum
Yeah.
that we're going to give.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, and more the baby latches onto the breast, the more. So it's like it's like a hormonal thing, it's like an
Cycle.
orchestra.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the things that a mother has to understand and learn. So I think so that's why we train the nurses very well, because they are our interface there. So we
Right.
train the nurses very well, and so that's how the whole thing goes. Okay, so by the time the mother gets discharged, she should be well equipped and she should be confident about breastfeeding. It's not going to happen in 2 days. We discharge mothers with normal deliveries in a day and a half, and who's gone through an LSCS in 2.5 days. I'm not saying it's just going to happen right away, but we kind of equip them, because we teach them, we train them even before they deliver. So we tell them. So it's not just so, because the family will immediately say, no, why is it that you're not producing milk? No, don't panic. It's not that way. And a lot of these grandmothers wait for the baby's tummy to kind of jut out. It's not going to happen. No, so you're not looking at something like that. So these are facts that we have to drive into a mother's head. See, keep her sane. And at one point of time, there are mothers who come and say, I just cannot breastfeed. I don't want to breastfeed.
Yeah.
I don't force them at all.
Yeah.
I talk to them. I try to convince them. And at one point, I drop my file and say, enjoy motherhood. At the end of the day, that's what matters. It's not about what you're doing. It's not. So I don't want to take them through a guilt trip of not feeding. I've had mothers, who've come to me who probably might not pass my certified I for what they're doing. But at the end of the day, are you enjoying motherhood? I think that's what matters.
That's what
I don't want them to go into a postpartum depression. I don't want them to go into something like that. I think what really matters is the mother enjoying motherhood. But my responsibility is to ensure that I try my level best to ensure that she hooks onto this thing called lactation.
Right. Rekha, thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask you about, you're also a childbirth educator. And by virtue of sort of, really, doing what you do in that role, you're always like engaging with women, right? And, that must be such a special feeling to constantly work. You also work in Sitapati, which is essentially a team of women, and then you work with women in educating them. What is the role of late that men are playing in this entire process?
Of childbirth?
Yeah.
Oh man, men play a very vital role, Akhila. And I must say that, we're really appreciative of what they're doing.
Right.
Okay, I think times have changed big time. It's not just because of this 2020, forget 2020. So I'm not talking about 2020 at all.
Right.
I'm talking about, even if you take this 10 years, the last 10 years, you can just see the difference. It's very, very evident, the kind of simple things. Husbands come in for antenatal visits.
Right.
Okay, husbands. So this was something that was happening in the US. I mean, I know my husband came in with me for antenatal, but not for every antenatal visit. Okay, so probably he would come in for the scans. Okay, just to see how the baby is, or just to trouble the scan doctor to find out what sex the baby. So this is how so that's how it was. Either my mother was accompanying me, or my sister would come with me, but not anymore. Okay, now I think at least 80% of the women come with their husbands. Of course, they have their own set of questions. I think men are very process oriented. They want things to be in place. So they want
black
that.
and white. Yeah.
So it's very nice that they come in, and they come for all my classes. So it's actually the labor preparation classes where we make it's compulsory for the husbands to attend. But for every class that I find husbands coming in, attending the class, finding out how it is, to the extent that it's very nice to see that, the husbands don't say she's pregnant anymore. They say we are pregnant.
We are pregnant.
So I think that's a beautiful shift that has happened. I think that speaks volumes of the involvement of men in this process of childbirth. I think if that support is there, so I think a woman can, she sails through childbirth. And I don't think, I think we give, I think now this present generation, Akhila, gets more support and more help than what
Yeah.
we got. We were caught in that, in that time of transition there.
Yeah.
But I think they're getting enough and more support. It's
Rekha, I
just
can't
that,
even imagine
yeah.
how my life would be without my parents' support. Like I have a
Yeah,
6-year-old
no,
and they're
it's not just
hands-on.
about yeah, it's not just about the parent support. Like, it's about the support that they get from the healthcare professionals. It's about the support that they
Absolutely.
get from what they read. It's amazing. It's the kind of support that we have. I think women, young girls, should make the best use of it and ensure that they don't. Sometimes they just get so overboard about that. They go overboard about it.
Mm. This
At one point of time, their questions have to stop.
stop.
At
Yeah,
one point of time, they just have to trust their health professional, go with the process. I think then they enjoy pregnancy, then they enjoy
that
motherhood.
much
I
more.
think that's the
Yeah.
most important.
In fact, I'd asked Dr. Umaram this question about, this overdose of information, right? People are reading a ton of things and probably not reading. And she said that one needs to read with discernment. That's the word that she had used. But Rekha, I'm going to ask you next about, I know that you're a long distance runner and I know that you strength train and you're like on top of the game as far as fitness is concerned. Why do you think it is physical fitness is so crucial to really feel strong and powerful?
Every woman, Akila, without any exception, likes to look good. Likes to look
For sure.
good for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's the first thing I think it
Yeah.
comes. At least 99% of women,
Yeah.
we like to look good.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just about the cosmetics, it's not about the attire, it's not about the accompaniments that go with it. I think
Right.
the basic thing should come from how healthy you feel and how
Right.
fit you are. Okay, I think
Right.
these are the two important things that every woman has to understand, has to combine, and has to ensure that she gets onto a fitness journey. Okay,
Right.
so it's not that your body has to give you a warning to get onto a fitness journey. It is about you. Can I be an example to ensure that I don't get into a warning bracket? So
Right.
it doesn't mean that you have to get a health issue for you to get fit. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not that way. Or
For
it's
sure.
yeah, it's not that I don't have time. No time is an excuse. I don't buy
Right.
that at all. I mean, I work with a team of doctors and obstetricians. I mean,
Yeah.
what more? Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think I need any other inspiration than them. Okay,
Right.
so
Absolutely.
I think
Round the clock,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So no time is an excuse. No time is an excuse. And to me, if a woman doesn't invest time on herself, I think it's the worst thing that she can do for herself. There's no point in getting ready, dressing up, wearing clothes. If you're not fit, if you're not healthy, it's not about running and it's not about athletic ability. It's not about playing a sport. It's about how good you feel about yourself. And
Right.
feeling good about yourself comes from being fit, getting on to some kind of a physical activity. I think that really, really helps. It's very
Right.
important that every woman gets that thing.
Yeah. When did you start when did you get on to this fitness journey? Rekha, talk to us about what kind of prompted you to kind of get onto it, and how does one really stay the course? Because often people, fall off the course because they can't, they can't manage their time, or circumstances are changing, or they're going through different phases in their life. Consistency, fitness coaches often say is crucial, right, to kind of staying the course. So talk to us about when you started, how you started, and how you stayed the course.
I was an athlete when I was in school, Akila. That was in
Right.
till class 10. And once I
Right.
moved to class 11 and 12, I think the typical thing of studies take over. So you really have to, so the sports part of it took a back seat. And
Right.
college, I didn't play any sport because the college I went to, I mean, there's not very, sports supportive college. It's more of
Right.
culturals and things like that.
Right.
So, and then I got married, and then, pregnancy, then I gained a lot of weight, typical. And I took a
Yeah.
sabbatical from 99 to 2003 because my boys are just 1 year, 8 months apart. So I took a
Oh.
sabbatical from work. I took a 4 year sabbatical from work. And I was a typical sit at home mom, sabbatical with a very bad body image, very poor body image because my weight was at whooping 82 kilos. And, I think I was just 28, and one of those days when I was just walking up the stairs, I had some knee pain, and I went to my orthopedic, and he said, "I'm really sorry to say, but you're probably getting into a mild osteoarthritis." And that
Oh my
really
gosh.
shocked. I mean, it was a shocker Okay, and I think on a lighter vein, but I think the worst part is you see your husband staying the same. Okay, I mean there's no change in him at all. He's a father, no change in him at all, and you go through all the changes, and you really feel bad and really sad about it. And the
No.
second thing that came was my aunt had come to visit me from Bangalore, and she just looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, you look so old, and what happened to you?" And she started crying. Okay, she literally she had tears in her
I
eyes.
know.
I mean, she was very
Imagine.
fond of me, and she was seeing me after almost a year and a half, and then so these are things that was really a wake up call for me. And I think the health issue was a big wake up call for me. So,
Right.
and then I'm talking about way back in 2001 when my younger one was born. We didn't have gyms or anything, right?
Right.
So, but then one fine day, I mean, I just decided that I have to do something about it. So obviously I had two little, one toddler and one infant, so I couldn't go out and do something. So I would just put a timer on for 45 minutes and walk inside the house. What people are doing now for Corona, I just used to do it then. Just walk for 45 minutes. That's it.
Right.
Okay. And the story of only if you eat well, you'll produce a lot of breast milk and all that. I never believed even in that. So I started going, of course, I did a lot of crazy stuff, like I went on crazy diets and all that. Not that it helped me, but I think now I'm in a position to tell people what they shouldn't do because
Yeah,
I've gone through all
absolutely.
that.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, and I used to walk up the stairs, do some staircase. We never had internet then, we never
Yeah.
had any books that could tell me what it was. And then once my younger one was a couple of months old, I would put him on the stroller. I would hold on to my older one and walk inside the compound. So for me, or take the toddler down and make him run in the garage. And then, so it was very selfish actually. So make him run in the garage. So it was a win-win situation. So he'll
Yeah.
get tired and he will sleep. So I will get some time off. And for me, it was also physical activity. So this is how my physical activity journey started.
Began.
Then
Okay.
and the first investment that I did was on a weighing scale. Okay, so I would check my weight every day, crazy about it. But to me, at that point of time, maturity was only so much. So
Right.
I said weighing
Right.
scale is,
Yeah.
I still continue checking my weight, but that's besides the point. But the point here is, so that's how the physical activity part of it. It was not
Began.
an exercise, it was physical activity part of it
Right.
started. So
Right.
from being a sedentary mother, I slightly went into a phase where I started doing a lot of activities which really helped me. I think more from a mental perspective. I
Yeah.
think that later on I realized it was the endorphin hormone,
Yeah.
neurotransmitters, all that the science
Absolutely.
came in later, but it
Right.
made me feel good about myself. I was less cranky, I was less scrappy. The family loved it because I was more sane. Okay, and I
Yeah.
was not
For
screaming,
sure.
shouting at people. So you're not yourself. So at the end
Yeah.
of the day, Akila, it's not just about physical fitness. It's about you don't feel good about yourself because you've been
Yourself.
crabby and
Yeah.
cranky. So these are things. And then
Absolutely.
slowly there was a gym that came up near my house. And then so I would go to the gym when the kids were sleeping. Okay. So
Right.
but the thing of working out every day for an
Became
hour
an
came into my
important.
system. So that
Yeah.
discipline came into my system. So that still
Right.
continues. And then in
Right.
2003, I joined a gym. That's where I met a lot of my friends who are my running friends now. So
Right.
one fine day, we just decided it was so boring to just run in the treadmill inside doors. We said, I'm living
Right.
in a place where there's a beach very
Yeah.
close to us. I think it's a
Isolated. Yeah.
sin not to run on the. So I said, let's say so three of us. It's just an idea that one of those guys just brought it up. So three of us just started running, and then slowly the group grew. But to me now, my physical fitness, I would owe it to my Dream Runners group. So I
Yeah.
think the group helps, especially if you are in a recreational sport like
Yeah.
running, the group
You
helps.
need that
Yeah.
group energy, right? To kind of.
Now it's become a part of my day.
Yeah.
It's become a part of my. I can't be without doing a physical activity. I can't be without exercising every day. I have to. Of course, we have a structure in place. We also have some rest days and all that. But
Right.
there is a method to the madness now. Yeah.
Right. You also strength trained, right, Rekha?
Yes. I give a lot of importance to strength training. So we
Right.
do strength training at least, 3 days a week. I also do yoga 1 day a week, and then I
Right.
run. Yeah, it's a combination
Fantastic.
of everything. But this is
Right.
all lessons learned after being injured. It's work in progress,
Yeah. Yeah.
Akila.
Yeah.
It's still work in
Of
progress.
course.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, we all live and learn, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rekha, I want to ask you about, I'm always like so excited about how women negotiate like so many different kinds of attires through the day. Like, you go running in a pair of shorts and then you wear a sari. And then how does one, as a woman and as a woman who wears many hats, talk to us about how a woman really so naturally navigates these roles? Like, what is it about us that makes us be able to multitask, and why are men so like, I mean, since you're a psychologist as well, like, talk to us about the science and art of why really men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Okay, I'm not going to go on that topic now because no, but the point I can probably look at it from a different perspective. The thing here is, I think, as I said earlier, all of us like to look good, Akhila. All of us like to look good. Okay, so I think we take inspiration from each other when we do that. So to me, I mean, I don't wear shorts and run. I wear my 3/4 or I wear my full
Right,
tracks and run.
right.
Okay, so my wardrobe is I have a lot of sports clothes too. Okay, but they
Right.
last forever. I've been
Yeah.
having those clothes forever because the dry fits just last forever.
Yeah.
And I don't like to turn up, shabby early in the morning.
Right.
It has to be well coordinated.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have visors which are because to ensure that my face doesn't get with the sweat
The
that because
Yeah.
we live in a place like Chennai. So
Yeah.
I ensure, but so I have a good my husband is listening and I can you
I
see
know
the
he's
emoji?
smiling. Yeah.
Okay, yes, yeah. So the thing here is. I like to be well coordinated and like to be
Yeah.
well dressed.
Yeah.
And starts right from early in the morning. The only time that I'm not well coordinated probably when I just go to sleep. That's all. But otherwise, I am. But even there, I give a lot of importance to clothes, and I give a lot
Okay.
of importance to the way I look and the way I
Yeah.
feel, because I think it's a feeling thing. Okay, so you
Yeah.
should feel good about what you're wearing. So it starts right from whether I'm going to sweat or not is besides the point, but I should
Yeah.
look good even in the mornings. Okay, so it starts from
No,
there. I think
absolutely.
that attitude kind of percolates through the day too. Okay, so and especially being in a field where we meet people, you need to look good. It's not about being dressy. It is about
Yeah.
being looking good. And
Presentation,
I
right?
love and I have a lot of friends, we have a lot of parties, we have a lot of weddings, we have a lot of relatives. So I
Right.
love dressing up and I love going out too. Of course, things have changed now, but anyway, I love doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I'm just going to
Yeah.
ask you one last question about, it was my question about, do you shop like for saris? I'll kind of come back to saris. And do you have like a wish list as far as your saris are concerned?
I love shopping, basically, Akhila. I
Yeah.
really love shopping, but I think over a period of time, over age, I think it's kind of you kind of streamline to the things that you
Yeah.
want and the things that you. It's not about the things that there are saris which I've not used for many years.
Yeah.
Okay, but as a habit, me and my husband, we have this thing of if you buy, let's say, 2 or 3 new clothes, you give away 2 or 3 old clothes.
Right.
Okay, so it kind of you
Amazing.
also feel good that you have
Yeah.
your wardrobe is clean
Yeah.
and neat and
Yeah.
new. Yeah, you feel good about it.
Yeah.
So that way it is good. But I do shop for saris, but I don't go except for occasions like Diwali, where I go. I love because I shop with my husband. My husband loves to buy, loves to come shopping with me for especially
Oh,
for saris. Yes, so
lovely.
both of us go shopping for saris for Diwali. But as
Okay.
such, I don't go shopping for saris as saris. But wherever I see a good sari, I pick it
You
up.
pick it up.
I pick it up. Yeah, I pick it up and I keep it in my shelf. And I mean, fortunately, the profession that I'm in, I get a lot of gifts as saris too.
Yeah.
From my pregnant women and from my new mothers. So actually, the sari that I'm wearing now is actually a gift from one of my new mothers.
Oh,
Yeah.
how lovely.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So that's the
That's
thing. So it's very
fantastic.
special to me. Well, so many saris have a story behind it. So
Right.
I preserve these saris. These are saris that I don't give away to anybody. I've been
Yeah.
having saris for some of the saris that have been gifted to me for have been some of my new mother 16, 17 years back. I still have them. Yeah, I don't give
Right.
away those saris. I mean, they're very special to me. There's a story behind that too. Every sari.
Yeah. The thing is that this has literally been the refrain. We've chatted with about 5 women as part of the series, and almost everyone's talked about how every sari has a story, and how the sari is
Yes.
really, it's like a storehouse of so many memories, right? That we kind of,
Yes, it does. It does. It does.
yeah,
It does. I
absolutely,
think yeah, I think every sari has a story behind it. And especially if a
yeah,
sari has been gifted to you by somebody, I
it's
think
ultra special.
it's very special. It's very special and you just, like about something about it. So you really don't
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
parting with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Rekha,
Yes.
so before this conversation gets disconnected, because we will get disconnected at the 59th minute, I wanted to thank you profusely for some very insights, very fascinating insights you shared with us. I particularly enjoyed the bit about, women having to stand up and, I mean, for emotional health, being able to say no, right? And the
Yes.
lockdown learnings that you shared with us. And so many other things that you said. I'm going to try and like put it down tomorrow and share it on the Panjavarnam page. I really appreciate you, taking time and speaking with us. And good luck to all the fantastic work all of you in the, the medical fraternity are doing. It surely cannot be easy, like to, I have to correct myself. I use the word lockdown, but really for you, there's been no lockdown. So you're actually negotiating like work and home with a mask and trying to keep both parties safe. So it must be really tough.
Yeah. Thank you, Akila. Thank you so much. And I must say that I play a very minimal part in this team of health professionals that I am, but I play a part, but it's a very minimal part that I
But it's a
play.
crucial part.
Yeah. It is a crucial part, no doubt about it. But I think it's teamwork that really comes forward, and so that's what is really good. So I'm really happy that we may had this conversation. And I'm happy that
Absolutely.
many of my friends have logged in. So it was really, really
Yeah.
nice. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Akila, for having me.
And many of them
Yeah.
are sending you like interesting comments like Diva and like nice emojis.
Ah,
And of course, your
I need
husband
to
who had
wear
a
my
good time.
glasses. I must confess, I have to wear my reading glasses to read that. So I can
Oh,
probably read that
okay.
very easily. Yeah.
No problem. Okay, Rekha,
Yes.
thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you to
Thank you
everyone
so
who
much,
logged
Akila.
in.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.